Hello, and welcome back to your South King County Real Estate Update. My name is Sarah Eggleston with Stone Egg Realty at John L. Scott, and I'm here to deliver your real estate news for the week. We'll go ahead and jump right on into these slides. Today is July 1st, 2022. That means we are halfway through the year. Can you believe it? 2022 is halfway behind us, and I'm really excited to see what the rest of the year brings us, but we'll go ahead and jump into this. I got them in early this year, so my Seahawks schedules are in. If you would like one, please let me know. I got them early so that I would have ample time to get them to everybody that needed one before the season starts. So if you would like one, let me know how to get it to you. Send me an address to send it to, or just message me, call me, and let me know how to get your schedule to you. And what happened this week? This week, I'm happy to report that I have some buyers that have been having some struggles getting offers accepted to get their offer accepted this week. Yay! This was a pretty big win, and we actually didn't go too much above the list price. So I think this is starting to show the change in market that we're starting to have. With the rising interest rates, there's buyers' purchasing power that's gone down. Some people that were thinking about moving that had refinanced in the last couple of years have decided not to move and just to stick with their current mortgage at the current rate instead of moving and having a higher rate in the near future. And so buyer competition has decreased, inventory has increased, so buyers are actually having some wins. Yay! I am so excited to say that because I feel like it's just been such an intense seller's market for so long, and buyers are frustrated. Some of them are so frustrated they've dropped out of the market completely. But there are some amazing opportunities to have for those buyers that are willing to stay in and just stick with the search, keep putting offers in. There are a lot more offers being accepted now with contingencies, financing contingencies, inspection contingencies, all of that. So that is really, really exciting for buyers for me to report. I'll go ahead and jump back on into these slides. So U.S. home price growth decelerates for the first time since 2021, including Seattle's. So on a nationwide scale, these are April numbers that just came out a couple days ago. Some of the stats take a while to compile. So these are historical numbers, so keep that in mind. But nationally, prices climbed 20.4% year over year in April. In March, it was 20.6. So we are looking at possibly the tipping point of the home price appreciation and starting to decrease on that number. 20+% home price appreciation on a home is not sustainable. And this is a nationwide number. This isn't just our area. So this is mind-blowing. In Seattle, our market is cooling too when we're looking at these metrics. Seattle area prices were up 26.1 in April compared to the same time a year earlier, down from 27.7 in March, year over year difference. So it looks like we have seen the peak on price appreciation, and the price appreciation number is going to start to decrease. And there's pretty much no analyst or economist that's predicting that home prices will decrease, and especially not significantly going forward, but the home price appreciation will decelerate. I thought this was a good quote. Mortgage financing has become more expensive as the Federal Reserve ratchets up the interest rates, a process that had only just begun when April data were gathered. A more challenging macroeconomic environment may not support extraordinary home price growth for much longer. This is saying that we will see probably a deceleration of home price growth in the coming months, but does recognize that this is historical data and that the next couple months of action have already happened, and it's just now analyzing that data and putting it out. There are some companies in the housing market that are doing layoffs, those that have W-2 employees, hourly workers. So Compass and Redfin have laid off some of their workers. Key inflation gauge tracked by the Fed remains a high 6.3. There was a report that came out this past week on Thursday that the inflation jumped 6.3 in May from a month earlier. That's unchanged from its level in April. So we have stopped our growth on inflation, and hopefully we are starting to tame that and reel that back in a little bit. The fuel is a huge portion of this. We've seen fuel prices increase, and that increases prices for pretty much everything because they're delivered to the location where customers buy them, or ordered online and delivered to home. And so the transportation costs for everything are increasing. So that is accelerating inflation a lot. Plus, our spending has increased as summer hits and people are spending money on plane tickets, vacations, hotel rooms, nights out, that sort of thing. This will accelerate the inflation if people keep spending at a high rate, despite the fact that the prices have increased fairly significantly for many of these goods and services. The Fed tends to monitor Thursday's inflation gauge, called the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, even more closely than it does the government's better known consumer price index. So there are a couple different gauges of inflation, both of which are sending us warning signals that inflation is running way too high. The Fed was a little bit slow to recognize how bad the inflation was. We're a little bit slower to react than they probably should have been. There was a bunch of surprises. If you want to know what was going on back then, go back and watch my videos from like March, April. Yeah, the war in Ukraine. There was a whole bunch of outside influences that sped this up too. So it wasn't just that they were caught off guard. There was other things that happened that weren't predicted that affected everything. So if we look at our showings for North America, we have ticked down slightly, mainly staying fairly level for the past week or so. But heading into the holiday weekend, you can see the past 2 years, we have this big dip. So on 4th of July weekend, we have fewer showings. People are out of town, they're at barbecues, whatever, but there are a lot of people that are occupied in other ways other than shopping for a home on 4th of July weekend. And so I do expect us to see a recurrence of this dip, but our showing activity, you can see the line is far below where we were the past couple of years, mainly due to the interest rates. Yeah, this is something to keep an eye on. Showing Time did just come out with their May 2022 report. So this showed that this is a nationwide thing. That was a national number there, but showings have gone down in all 4 of the main regions. Here in the West, we have gone down 45.3% in buyer activity year over year. So we are comparing this to 2021, which was an intense buyer year. It seemed like everyone was out shopping for a home. Now with the higher interest rates, we have seen a decrease in buyer activity for the time being. Here's where it brings it to our local area. Denver and Seattle were the 2 leaders in buyer activity. They both fell off the top 25 busiest markets list. Here in the greater Seattle area, we have seen a drop in showings. And here's a map that kind of shows, so you can see the West here, what it encompasses. So it is a pretty large region, but overall for this region, we're down 45.3% in showing activity. This is a quote from the Showing Time company's vice president. Showing activity continues to be at levels lower than we're used to seeing at this time of year, pointing to a market in transition. Following the surge in mortgage rates, it's reasonable to expect that showing activity will continue to ease, especially when compared to last year's historic numbers. So this is just saying, yes, we are definitely lower than last year, but last year was crazy. While we are off where we were last year, we are still in a seller's market at this point by definition, but there are far more buyers having some surprising wins out there than there were a couple months ago. And that brings us to our Market Stat Minute. There were 746 new listings in King County in the past 7 days, 764 pending, and 892 sold. So if we look at our new listings, that dropped off quite significantly. However, this number you need to take it with a grain of salt because it's a holiday weekend. People don't list as often on a holiday weekend. It's actually how I ended up getting the steal of a deal on my house was we put our offer in on 4th of July weekend. So there were fewer buyers out shopping that weekend. We had less competition. So if you are a buyer in the market this weekend, maybe go to a later barbecue on Monday, head out this weekend, check out the houses available, make sure on Monday you are getting your offers ready and set, and then go to the barbecue. That's my little tip. For our local breakdowns in Renton, Kent, and Federal Way, Auburn as well, but on a much more narrow margin, we had more pendings than new listings. So this is showing that there's just not a lot of new listings coming to the market this week, and that there's not perhaps as much to choose from. So if you're a serious buyer, I would recommend getting out there and taking a look. Don't miss this weekend, but there's a good chance that you may not find what you're looking for this weekend because there's just fewer listings to choose from. And last week, our weekly average mortgage rate was 5.81%. This week, we have dropped to 5.7. So yay, this is the first actual decent price drop on mortgage rates I've gotten to report in quite a while. So this is kind of a reaction to the inflation data that came out. And if we bring it to today's interest rate, we're at 5.5 for the Mortgage News daily average mortgage rate. This is from Mortgage News Daily. It came out yesterday. Rates lowest in more than a week after inflation data. So this inflation data came out and it showed that we may have reached the peak and we're coming down a little bit. That's great news for the economy. So basically, inflation is the enemy of interest rates. So when we see that inflation come down, we expect mortgage rates to come down as well, because a lot of mortgage rate pricing is projection into the future. And just another reminder, if you are thinking about buying or selling real estate this year, especially this summer, please reach out. I have these buyer and seller guides available specifically designed for summer 2022. New information, new stats, ultra relevant to today's market. So if you are even considering making a move this year, please let me know, and I would be happy to send one of these over to you. And just one last plug, Seahawks schedules are in. If you want one, let me know how I can get it to you, and I would be happy to send it your way. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. My phone number and email address are on the screen there. I would love to have a conversation with you about the real estate market in your area or an area you may be interested in. With this show, I feel like I'm just talking at you. So I love these one-on-one conversations where I get questions and can answer them, and that back and forth, it is just the best. So please reach out. I would love to have a conversation with you. And join me back here next week at 3 p.m. I'll be back to deliver your local real estate news for the week. So I will see you then. Have a fantastic week. Have a safe and happy 4th of July. And we will see you next Friday.